Hi, I'm Chike Coleman, that's Sanford Hess, and this is Real Reviews Home Edition, the show where we talk about movies from our homes. This week, we're doing a bit of an actor spotlight for Sacha Baron Cohen. For those of you who are most familiar with Sacha's work, it falls under the category most of the time of comedic. And one of his most famous characters that he ever created was Borat. There was a film that came out, I believe, 4 years ago now.
Oh, longer than that. It was like
Was it a
Borat.
decade?
It came out in like 2008, I think.
2008. So Borat came out in 2008, and that was a big hit. It was about a reporter from, what is it, Kazakhstan?
Kazakhstan, yeah, 2006. I'm sorry,
Kazakhstan.
2007.
And Kazakhstan. Uh,
Yeah.
and how he journeys to America to interview us crazy Americans and learn about our customs and our way of life and insult us in every way possible. Borat 2, as I will call it, because the sequel's name is equally as long or as confusing as the first, involves Borat being punished initially in Kazakhstan and being given a mission to give a present to Donald Trump.
Well, no, to Mike Pence,
Well, I'm sorry, Mike Pence,
the
and this
ladies'
is
man.
Mike Pence to Rudy Giuliani. And this involves Sacha Baron Cohen first being put on, what do you call that carnival ride? Well, it's not really even a ride. Uh, Put on one of those strongman carnival things and getting his genitals hit with that little steel ball for all the stupid things he did to the country of Kazakhstan. Um, then he proceeds to go to the U.S. with a gift of a monkey that when he gets it delivered, he finds out is eaten. That's neither here nor there. His daughter randomly tags along for the ride, and then he gets the brilliant idea of offering her up as the gift.
Well, he has to because she ate the monkey.
Yeah, she ate the monkey. Um, so she ate the monkey, and he offers her up as a gift. And what follows is that the rest of the movie is about trying to get her ready for Michael Pence. And then after that fails, in a way you'll find out later, he tries to do the same for Rudy Giuliani, and that
Succeeds.
halfway works. I can't say it doesn't work because there's media coverage of how that sort of worked. Um, and I'll say this. I thought the first Borat movie was great for all the fun, chaos, Sacha Baron Cohen got people to admit to and the craziness of their journey. I thought that was great. This is somehow better. And the reason it's better has nothing to do with all the comedy skits. They're all really very funny because you're not really expecting them to go the way they do. Like, I laughed at the simple stuff, like the joke with the fax. He faxed one, he faxes it back. He faxed one, he faxes it back. And the guy reads it just in the most plain, dull voice. He sent you a bunch of angry faces.
I like
Um,
the first facts. Sup?
yeah. So, I mean, those jokes are great, but there's heart in this movie. Heart in, Borat accepting his role as a father, heart in accepting himself as kind of not really a joke reporter, but just like somebody who both means a lot to the U.S. because they know the character, but also finding more value in himself and who he is. You see that a lot, and you see that through his daughter, who is a fantastic actress. Uh, the fact that they're able to duplicate the language to each other is a masterstroke. Um, because their relationship really holds together the film. All I'll say is this movie features a plot twist that if you're paying attention, you should see a mile away. But if you're not thinking about it, like I was the entire movie, It's a jaw dropper. And I really love this movie for not only giving us all the humor we could ever need in 2020, because it's been a dumpster fire, but it also gives us the levity we've long needed. Sanford, what did you think of Borat 2?
Well, I'm going to agree with you. I think this is the perfect movie for 2020. And, not just for the fact that we need a laugh, but also because the movie was filmed in late 2019 and then early 2020 and was actually, and this to me is some of the genius of the movie, shaped itself around the pandemic and was altered by the pandemic. For example, there's the scenes where he spends, and I read a little bit afterwards, he wound up spending 5 days sheltering in place with those two guys in their house. Those are,
Oh,
yeah, those are scenes that, they didn't plan ahead of time for some of these things. I mean, his style of comedy is, to me, unique in the sense that it is found comedy. So I actually went back. I'm going to do a little tangent here. After I watched Borat 2, I went back and watched the first Borat the next night. And one of the things that just struck me so much about watching them one after another is his genius to create comedic situations without him actually like making jokes. And I think those two guys, and he's stuck in the house with them, that wasn't planned. Things happened that way, and he creates these funny situations. In the first movie, I was really struck by. You got to go back to the first movie a little bit. He arrives in America in the first movie, and he meets almost on like the first scene with a comedy consultant,
yeah.
and he plays this complete straight man. And yet it's a hysterical scene because of the way he just twists this guy's mind who's a comedy consultant. I mean, it's like working on like 10 levels at once. It's an amazing talent that he has. And as you noted, the woman who plays his daughter has in this film is their ability to just kind of stretch out and go with the moment, yet the person who that they're interacting with has no idea necessarily about, what's going on, yet they turn out this amazing comedy. I mean, I got to say, I think my favorite scene in Borat 2 was the whole conversation in the guy who's consulting them about the baby that was in her belly.
Oh, God.
you know, yeah,
So much about that scene is literally perfect.
yeah. And not. I mean, it goes way beyond their ability to just keep a straight face, right? I mean, that would be one thing. Sure, okay, yeah, they go in there, haha. No, they actually are. They continue to go down these paths.
They play it as straight as possible while they're doing it too.
Yeah. And we as the audience, because we know what's kind of gone on just prior to the scene, it's hysterical to us. But obviously the person who they're interacting with has no idea about that. And
Yeah.
yeah, the movie's a bit, and then the other thing that this movie, the reason I would say it's the movie of 2020 is this, it also ties into this political, debate right now. While we're recording, the U.S. presidency is still hanging in the balance, right?
Yes.
This movie is also about that divide within America. And, that to me, again, Sacha Baron Cohen's genius is to, much like the first movie, he's holding up a mirror to America. And, we may not like what we see, but this is who America is, particularly to somebody from the outside. And by playing these characters, he's able to bring that out. And, you wind up with some of this incredible scenes that are, just defy explanation. Plus, at the same time, he's incredibly lucky. One thing that struck me, one of the key moments of this movie was completely unintentional comedy, and they probably didn't even know they had it at the time. When he breaks in on Mike Pence's speech to give his daughter to her, here's Mike Pence up on stage at a major event talking about the coronavirus, saying, we have it under control. There's 15 cases, and it's like, oh my God, I can't believe they got that on film. That was the speech that they interrupted. And here he is and saying that, and we're looking at this now in November of 2020, and
Mm,
it just takes on a whole new light.
it
So
does.
yeah. So I those parts to me are just, it's amazing what he does with his comedy. It is, I don't know that I can think of anybody else who does it quite the same thing as him.
Yeah, there really isn't. He will take a normal situation and make it comedic without even saying anything. You don't even have to look at him. Just watch the other people he's interacting with, and it's genius enough to really just lose yourself in the humor. I think about the African American lady who's trying to teach the daughter her own independence, and the touching of a certain spot, and those comedic moments that are just laugh out loud, just ridiculous, but also you kind of don't care because it's just you're seeing the world for what it is, the
And
chaos for what it is.
and those are also at the same time incredibly human moments. I mean, watching her try to counsel his daughter, um, without seeming to break some sort of threshold of telling her that her father is a complete idiot, yada yada. But
Yeah,
just it's a very, those are very touching and personal moments, because you alluded to that up front. This movie has more heart than the first movie did, and to that I would credit entirely his daughter. I mean, I think it was a genius thing for them, and this is where, again, they even touched on this in the beginning of the film. He is unable to go around in the Borat costume anywhere in America without being recognized, and they even referenced that at the beginning of the movie.
they
So
do.
what a brilliant way for him to sort of go incognito by putting the spotlight on his daughter, and then he winds up, for example, doing other scenes as other characters, which actually goes to one of my only complaint. Well, not one of my complaints about this movie is there's actually not enough Borat.
I mean, I don't disagree with you there.
Yeah. The first movie, again, watching the first movie after I went back and watched it, in comparison, it's really all about him. And this
Hmm.
movie, it was less of him interacting with people in character because he couldn't get away with it. It was much more about, and there was also in this movie, to me, a lot more of a, sort of a narrative arc of this relationship with him and his daughter that, there wasn't really a parallel in the first movie. The first
I
movie was,
agree. The parallel
more
wasn't.
the
Yeah.
scenes. Yeah. So I don't know how much of that was them creating filler. I really would love to know more about like how much of that was created after the fact, after they had shot some of it, or if it was kind of planned out that way.
But would you recommend this film?
Yes, very much. Who would you not recommend it to? There, let's start there.
Children under five. Children under five.
That's actually part of the warning of the beginning of the movie. I think it's children under 3 or something.
But everybody else, yeah, they can handle it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. I mean, I think people, they're some of the people who he's holding up a mirror to may not appreciate seeing, not just those unique people, but also people who might, recognize the bit of themselves in some of the people he's sort of making fun of,
Right.
won't like it, right? But I mean, objectively, this is just a hysterical movie, and definitely what 2020 needs.
Right. One last question. I also recommend it for all the reasons you said, and the additional one of you can never expect a film like this to work. You're always going in rooting against it, mostly because you already know the setup, because you know the character. This movie overshadows everything that you knew about Borat and shows you a different side to both the character and his missions. My last question to you is this: did you see the twist at the end coming?
Which twist at the end are you going with?
The when they went back to Kazakhstan.
Uh, I didn't. I mean, I don't try to decide where movies are. No, I didn't see it coming. How about that?
I didn't see it either, and I think it's a mastery that you had that the film had us so immersed that we just missed every hint they gave us.
Well, the first one did that too, though, because in the first one, again, this is the benefit of watching them back to back. The first one, at the end of the movie, he goes back to Kazakhstan with the this woman that he meets to take her back, and they must have actually flown her to wherever they filmed those scenes. I mean, so it very closely parallels the first one, actually, in a lot of very weird ways. So.
But is it a better film than the first one, in your opinion?
That's tough. I'm gonna go with no, because the first one is more pure Borat, and this one is a little more diluted Borat.
Okay, fair enough. We've moved on from one chaotic storm to another. The Trial of Chicago 7, directed and written by Aaron Sorkin, is his latest directorial feature. Not his first, though. He had one before that I cannot remember the name of.
Social Network. Did he direct that
No,
also?
he wrote The Social Network. He didn't direct it, though.
Okay.
He had one other directorial credit before that. I don't believe
we'll
I
just
saw.
leave it at that. Sure.
But yeah, would you please, Sanford, tell everyone about the Trial of Chicago 7?
I will do my best, and I promise this, I'm going to keep it very brief. The Trial of the Chicago 7 is based on real life events, and I did a little research afterwards. Pretty closely sticks to them, although it deviates in a few places.
Mm-hmm.
In 1968, at the Democratic Convention in Chicago, there were fights with the police, with people who had come to the convention to protest against both the selection of Hubert Humphrey as the candidate, and also just in generally against the Vietnam. Now, after those events, and after the election of Richard Nixon, they selected a group of who they blamed to be the leaders of those events and put them on trial for crossing state lines to incite violence or some other pretext similar to that. So the movie starts with us being introduced to the person who's going to be the prosecutor, played by Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Mm-hmm.
And then we are we're also introduced to the Chicago 7. Now, the movie goes on from there, and this part I'm going to kind of speed through. A lot of the movie takes place in the courtroom and focuses on the drama of the way that the courtroom played out, where the judge was clearly biased against the defendants.
Indeed.
Clearly biased for the prosecution. And probably the most egregious example of that is Bobby Seale, who was one of the people who was lumped in with it, even though he was not actually even at the events in question. But Bobby Seale, an African American, is subjected to extensive. He's the only one who's kept. Well, he's associated with the crime in a different state, which he was found not guilty for. But at the time, he's the only one who's spending each night in jail. He's the one who the judge goes mercilessly at. He's wound and eventually bound and gagged. And by the way, in real life, I found out he wasn't just gagged for one day of the trial. He was actually gagged for several days, physically gagged, not just spiritually. Yeah. But so the movie sort of dwells on that aspect of it. There's some legal twists and turns. There's a star witness at the end, and I think in one of the the strongest parts of the movie, it retroactively tells the story of the events with flashbacks during the film. The movie ends with the courtroom sort of final scene, and at that point we sort of learn what happens to the characters in the text that appears afterwards. I always think of Animal House when that happens, but it's been used in so many movies. So that's the movie, and the movie is really focused about the trial of the Chicago 7. It's not a history of the convention or the events, it's about the trial. Now, I'll say this. Aaron Sorkin is a master at writing dialogue. To me, the best part of this movie was the introductory scene where we're shown the different characters in an overlapping dialogue style, where one of them is speaking up to a certain point, and then we kind of cut over to a different person saying something different, but the words flow through. It's a genius style of filmmaking.
Mm-hmm.
Used also, I gotta say, in Austin Powers with a bunch of dick jokes, which is.
You had to go there, but that is true.
Yeah. But Now, from that point forward, then we get a lot of the rat-a-tat dialogue that Aaron Sorkin is famous for, both from The West Wing and Social Network. And actually, recently I went back and watched Sports Night, the TV series that he wrote before The West Wing. So it's Aaron Sorkin dialogue at its best. And it's a group drama with a lot of great characters, including Sacha Baron Cohen as Abby Hoffman, one of the leaders of the Yippies, along with Jerry Rubin. In general, the defendants aren't really that well fleshed out. The Bill Kunstler, the lawyer for them, gets a little more screen time and is actually a more interesting character in some ways. But in the whole, that's where the movie was to me. It was a fascinating courtroom drama with excellent dialogue. Now, Chike, before I say anything more about what I thought about this film, what did you think about this film?
I have always been a fan of courtroom drama since I watched Law and Order as a young adult. I have never been a fan of brutality in the form of the racist actions of that judge and the brutal beatings he put upon the defendant, which I think was Bobby Seale. I can't remember.
Right, Bobby
It's been a
Steele,
few
yeah.
days.
Yeah.
But I really felt endlessly immersed in the movie. I loved the introduction to Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character because he's one of my favorite actors. I think that this showed yet another side, the anger and the brutality with which Sacha Baron Cohen's character speaks, and in his vigorous defense of what happened, and the vigorous thoughts he has about what occurred, what didn't occur, and his absolute fight to use his rights to gain his own freedom and in a way defend his actions is really what was the most powerful part of the movie for me. And it also is showcased again, like you said, by the great writing of Aaron Sorkin, who is a master storyteller. Maybe not a master director, because I didn't like the shots in this film and how the film was shot. But as a writer, top shelf, top notch stuff. I wish we could get something beautifully written by him every year. But I also have one gripe. And it's a weird one. It was too focused.
Too focused on what?
It was overly focused on just the trial. I wanted to know more about these people outside of that courtroom, and I didn't get to.
Yeah.
And that for me is the one underselling negative point of this film, is that like you said, you don't really get to know much about the defendants. They're flatly drawn, and I want more. I want more detail.
Right.
So that when,
Go ahead.
Bobby gets gagged and beaten to a pulp, you're like, oh no, you can't let that happen to him.
Right.
We know how good of a guy he is because we just saw him here or here. We didn't really get that, and that may have been the one piece that this movie was missing. The heart of the story is the trial. The heart of the fight is there, but the heart of the human being is missing.
Right. I mean, I'll go back to that intro scene where they have the overlapping dialogue. I mean, it introduces us to some of not all the characters, but some of the characters. There's two who it's even joked about. They're kind of throwaway characters. But even, I mean, that was not enough. I mean, we maybe had, 45 seconds to a minute to get to know Bobby Seale, and that's it. That's the only backstory we get on him, is that one scene where he's grabbing stuff to go to Chicago, and that's all. And there's so much more context to what's going on here, but I empathize on that one because it's so hard. I mean, this could have been a 4-hour movie. So,
I would have been fine with that, knowing that it would continue with his dialogue, which would give us breadth and knowledge and an idea of the times rather than just this one pocketed event. Which, let's not escape that it's a very, very important event. But a more wider scope of the time we're in, why it's so difficult, why that fight is so crucial. Because they also learned during the trial that Fred Hampton was killed.
Yeah.
And their reaction to that is key.
So, here's a complaint because when Netflix started eating everybody's lunch in the motion picture industry, and I still think this might happen, but the idea that we're locked into this 2-hour format for storytelling, I think can go out the window with Netflix and with streaming. So, this movie very easily could have been 4 hours. It could have been cut into 4 1-hour chunks, maybe. And they could have done a much better job, going into that backstory, telling some of the things. And some parts of this movie zipped along too fast, honestly.
Yeah.
Um, so, I would love to see Netflix and, filmmakers take advantage of the fact that they're not locked into oh, well, it can't be more than 2 hours and 15 minutes long. No one's going to sit that long. Well, I got news for you. People are, we're trapped at home. We're in the pandemic.
I
So,
mean, if there wasn't a better example of that than The Irishman, I don't know what is. Um, I tend to agree with you there. My problem with the idea of either expansion of the movie industry beyond 2 hours
mhm.
or the breaking up of it into parts, as you're suggesting, is that you really, really have to pick somebody that is on their game and stays on their game with the right cast, the right motivations, the right moments to really continually pull people in. Why is something like and here's just a broad example, The Golden Compass, which was originally a sci-fi book by Philip Pullman. They turned it into a movie. Nobody liked the movie because you couldn't talk about God or Christianity because it would offend people and it was a kids' movie. Didn't work. You turn it into an 8-episode miniseries of 2 or 3 seasons, people are eating it up because you're giving the story room to breathe. And Netflix, with all their money and resources now, needs to learn that lesson. Netflix, you can eat everybody's lunch. I'm fine with it. As long as you give the story room to breathe. You had one of the greatest writers of the last 50 years in television writing you a 2-hour movie. You could have easily expanded it to 6. Like, can you imagine if they took Spike Lee said, "Oh, you know what? All of a sudden, I've got a director's cut of Malcolm X that's 6 hours long, and I want to give it to Netflix for 3 or 4 1.5 hour episodes,
Yeah.
and I've got the perfect places where we can stop it, so that the journey is continuous." That would be amazing. They had the opportunity to do something like that here with the trial of the Chicago 7. Yes, it would have meant paying the actors more money. Yes, it would probably meant more location scouting and more set design. But the quality and the breadth of the story and the breadth of the dialogue that you would have gotten for that price would have made everything worth it. Because that's a known writing name with known people. I
Sorry.
will say this. I do like the trial of Chicago 7, but I wanted to love it, and I didn't.
And I'll say this, I enjoyed it, but my negative on it, and I didn't really get into this, was the peak emotional moments were overplayed. Um, and actually, Eddie Redmayne is the exception to that. I thought he was fabulous and underplayed, but the other parts of it were just too over the top. And that final scene was just,
Cheesy as all
yeah,
hell.
yeah. So there you go. All right. Well, hey, any final thoughts on that?
My final thought is this. If you didn't think about watching work by Sacha Baron Cohen, you should start. He's a very good actor in both comedy and drama, and he's well worth looking into. He's got a good body of work out there.
Including my favorite role of his. It's kind of underplayed or underrated. Talladega Nights.
Indeed,
He is fabulous in that.
he
So,
is.
on
All
that
right.
note,
Until next time, I'm Chike Coleman, and that's Sanford Hess. We will see you in your homes on the sofa being couch potatoes. Bye, guys.